You're listening to the Washington AI Network podcast, the winner of 2 2025 Communicator Awards. One for excellence in the science and technology category and an award of distinction for our episode on healthcare AI, featuring tech legends Ted Leonsis and Grant Verstandig.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tammy Haddad, founder of the Washington AI Network. Oh my God. Sanjay, they've never cheered like that before, so that's really for you. With all the conversations about artificial intelligence, nothing is more critical than the security of our data, especially government data. That's why I'm so pleased to welcome Sanjay Poonen, CEO of Cohesity. Give him a round of applause. They are at the center of how data security is being redefined in the age of AI. And as AI transforms how companies and agencies operate, the question becomes, how do we protect what matters most? Sanjay, welcome.
Thank you very much
for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. As we stand at the intersection of data and AI, what are the most urgent data challenges government leaders must solve to unlock its potential? Can we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy. And thank you, everybody here. We've got a live audience in the room and hopefully many people listening. I think one of the things that's happened with data is, first off, the realization that it's exploding at a pace that's uncontrollable because, everything that you do generates data. It's like a digital exhaust. So you think of the Library of Congress or whatever your favorite metaphor is of a library of the past where there was physical data, and now in a digital form, your car emits data. Okay, anything, your phone emits data. So data is exploding. And the second thing to note is it's very fragmented. It's fragmented in all of different silos of stores. We typically, those of us who have been in the data-oriented industry, and I've been watching this for 25, 30 years, I've been in, you can divide it into structured data. Structured data are things like a database. Everyone hopefully knows what a database is. It's got rows and columns, like a spreadsheet. And unstructured data are things like files. They're text files, maybe a PDF file or a Word document, an image or a video. Those are unstructured data. And all of that data is just exploding. And the first thing that you want to know about that data, especially as it relates to the enterprise, the government, is the bad guys want to get at it, okay? Because if they can steal it or they can corrupt it, they have this thing now called ransomware that's become very common in the last 5 to 10 years, that all of the data that's kind of secured and in some cases backed up has become the attack vector for ransomware. And those of us who have been following this industry for 10, 20 years, that probably wasn't the case 20 years ago, 10 years ago. In the last 10 years, ransomware attacks have just been on the rise. And they're typically nation-state actors from a couple of countries. You can probably guess who those are. So all of us in the enterprise and the government need to have our guard up. And there's certain rules of cyber hygiene. There's certain things that we could do. But the most important thing to that data, especially sensitive data, classified data, and in the banks, it might be all of the consumers' data and so on, is to keep it secure from ransomware attacks. And the second thing you want to do once it's safe is it's not valuable just if you're putting it inside a bunker. You want to use AI to get to that data. So Tammy, that's how we think about data. There's a security element of data, and that's more paramount than the AI. But you put those two together, we got NVIDIA in the room. They're an investor in our company. AI is now exploding everything. But you can't do AI before you've done absolutely securing your data. Because if you don't have the data, what's the point to AI?
Right. But government data is siloed, right, and regulated. So what do you do?
Yeah, so you have to first understand both those two. When it's regulated or siloed or in many cases classified, you want to find a way by which you can get all of that data into a centralized platform that's secure. That's what our company has done. The founders are ex-Google folks who built an incredible platform that could ingest data, think of that as getting it from all these different silos, into one centralized platform, and that place was secure from the bad guys, and you could recover that data extremely fast. That was the core tech that was built about 12 years ago. And what we've built on top of that is just more and more sophisticated security to protect that data, talk about government data, whether it's classified, unclassified. That data could be sitting either on-premise in the government's data centers, or in the government's cloud, classified or at various different levels of classification, or in a cloud that we manage as a SaaS service, all those places with, again, the levels of classification. And once that data is in that secure place, there's a concept of what's called immutability, meaning you cannot write over data. Think of it like, if you, I don't know, many of you are too young to remember what a tape was. But I grew up with a day and age where my first exposure to Michael Jackson was a cassette tape. And if you remember a cassette tape, you couldn't write over it. You listened to segments of song. The first time you could write over, but then it was frozen. That's the notion of immutability. You want to basically make sure your data is immutable, in a secure place, it's encrypted. Those are the types of things we help the government and the enterprises at.
But how do you do that for everyone? I mean, say government, right? Every agency is different. So is it different for everyone, or do you try to put one layer that's all the same?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure that's what you try to do. I don't know if you get there.
Yeah, everything in life is complex until you start putting into categories. So typical data, like I described, even at the raw level, you could think of it as structured or unstructured. Now let's go a little deeper beyond that. Typically, inside that, you'll see formats that look like this. So I'll go a little bit technical, but not too technical. There's a notion of what's called a virtual machine. That's a concept that was at VMware that VMware invented. So typically, a lot of data exists inside a virtual machine. So we can go and get that data because we built some very strong integration into various forms of virtual machine, VMware being the biggest of them. The second format of data we typically see is databases. And there could be tens of different types of databases, but common ones are Oracle or Microsoft or MongoDB and so on. The third form of data we typically see is files. Think of files like a PDF file or a Word document. And the fourth are some application, like a Salesforce or a Microsoft 365 or a Google Workspace. So those are typically the 4 buckets of data. And if we go to one department, let's say in the defense side or on the civilian side, you'll typically find those 4, okay? Not much variance. So we'll go and work with many of your CTOs or CIOs of those departments. We'll work with your teams that have that infrastructure, be able to identify where that data is. The exact data might be different in each department, but they're typically in one of those forms, a virtual machine, a database, a file, or some other application. And we take that data, we build connectors to all of that data, ingest that data into a secure platform that typically sits in one of the government's enterprise locations, secure, classified, high level of security capabilities. Once that security is ready, now we're ready for AI.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. So
I hope everyone understood that. Wasn't too.
Raise your hand. Okay.
Raise your hand if you understood what I said. All right, I don't feel too bad.
There we go.
I was warned not to get too technical.
I had to know, though. Okay, so now you overlay AI, and there's all kinds of AI, right? There's standards for those that have made the standards that are still in the room, but there aren't all standards that many people want. I'm sure you probably do too. So how does that work?
Yeah, so AI is an amazing, and for those of you who have, children, it's amazing. Let me tell you a short story that motivates how powerful this is. I have an 18-year-old, she's now 19, just gone to college, and our twin boys are 15. And as she was getting into high school and kind of doing physics. She's more a biology person, not so, interested in physics and math like I was. I wanted to review physics to help her. And it was kind of jogging my mind to 20, 30 years ago when I was in high school. And I would read the textbook and the concepts would come back. I don't know, Newton's law of X, Y, Z. And then one day when I was going on a trip, I said, hey, listen, I'm out for a couple of days. There's this tool called ChatGPT, but do me a favor, you're not using it to cheat, okay? You're using it to test your answers, okay? Because I want you to learn the concepts. I came back from my trip and she said, Dad, you've been displaced. I don't need you anymore. Because I've now got the tool which helps me. And you want that to be the way in which people learn. Hopefully not cheating, but using it as a tutor.
And did you know ChatGPT, when it rolled out, did you know?
I started playing with it in the early days when it came out. Whenever people start talking about it, LLMs 2-3 years ago, and I was amazed. What I first did, I've been speaking on topics like this for 20 years, data and analytics, and then when I was in VMware and security. So I asked it to summarize a Sanjay Poonen speech from 10 years ago on this topic, and it did such a brilliant job. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And what it struck me was the tool itself is powerful, but the company with the most amount of data and content was going to win. Because ultimately, the holder of that content was ultimately what we were summarizing. And it was a very powerful summarization tool. okay? So if you didn't want to, all of you are very educated, probably very good communicators, chief of you probably Tammy. If you didn't want to read Leo Tolstoy, okay, which is the biggest book I think of anybody asked to read in college, and you said summarize Leo Tolstoy, they could do that really well, okay? Now, the early forms of ChatGPT, you never knew if that was accurate.
Right, right.
So if you were in college and you asked to summarize Leo Tolstoy and you asked ChatGPT to do it, it might what's called hallucinate, meaning it gives you a wrong answer, and then your teacher knew you were using it better.
Right.
But that's getting better and better and better. The ability to accurately summarize large amounts of data with GPT 1, 2, 3, now it's at version 5, OpenAI, Anthropic, very, very powerful. So the way to think about these LLM tools is it's the grand summarizer of large amounts of data. You give it a large document, and if you didn't want to read it, it summarizes it into a paragraph, and it's getting more and more accurate. Okay, so build on that concept. What does Cohesity do? We store a lot of data securely for all of you, many of your organizations, okay?
Let's say thank you.
Well, I've talked to some of you. I've talked to some of you prior to this, and we could do more to help you. And we're very obsessed with keeping the country safe and keeping the enterprise safe. But let's assume all your data we kept safe on our platform, okay? Just keeping it safe is part one. Now imagine that notion of what I described, the grand summarizer, helping you summarize large amounts of, let's take one document type, a PDF, okay? So some of your departments have a lot of PDFs, maybe in the hundreds of millions of documents. If you could run a flashlight or a summarizer on all that, and you're authorized to do it, because you don't want the wrong people accessing the information. So that's a big assumption. We call it responsible AI. But if you could have that tool now summarize 100 million documents. So in some cases, you might have vendor contracts if you're in the DODs or some of the sort of the defense departments. But everyone has vendors they deal with. So think of contract documents, 100 million of them over the last 10 years. And you wanted to write a query of this sort. Summarize all the economic terms I've given the vendors I deal with and put it in a nice table. That's what GPT and ChatGPT could do well. We built that tool for the data that's on our platform. It's a product called Gaia that we're very honored to build with NVIDIA, who invested in our company, because a lot of this is powered by their GPUs. And it's the first time that a tool of that kind, a generative AI tool, can be applied to that data. That's a very powerful concept.
So is that for getting bad guys?
Well,
like, so you have ChatGPT for bad guys.
There is AI we use for a lot of our research algorithms for security. But that's kind of, I would say, defense. This is intended to be a productivity tool to help you play offense, to help you get insights on the data.
Right, right.
And where you have those large documents now, you can search and summarize it. The other place it could be helpful is if you have a legal compliance case, you're trying to investigate things, and large amounts of unstructured data, searching and summarizing them, this tool, Gaia, is incredibly powerful.
So is this agentic AI in cyber? I mean, because we talk a lot about agentic here. Usually it's travel plans, right, when we're done. But are you using agentic AI to track all of this?
Yeah, so
to track what you need?
An agent is just like a robotic app that runs some things for you. That's kind of, think of it like a sales agent or a travel agent. So this concept of Gaia could either be an app or an agent. And in general, our view is that the way in which you do any task repetitively will be done by this agentic robot. For example, if you're repeatedly using spell check in a document, right? That could be something that's automated for you in an agentic fashion. Anything that you're doing repeatedly in life. I mean, the first form of a robot were these small little robots that cleaned your room. You remember that? I don't know what they were called. The Roombas, right?
They're not wet and dry.
So
I just saw that. Wet and dry. That's AI for you.
That's an example of an agent, right? It's doing work for you. Now you take that same concept and apply it to anything in the tech world. Anything that you're doing repeatedly that someone could watch and learn and you authorize will become an agent that helps you. And wouldn't that be great in life, right? Why would you want to do something that's repetitive over and over and over again? You're like, I'm copying and pasting over and over again. That should be done by a robot. That same concept could be applied to anything in tech, including security, which is our world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but let's go back to the government, right? Government optimization and AI innovation, right? These are initiatives the Trump administration has made it basic that we're going to do more with less. We're going to use innovation. We're going to be more efficient in our operations. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think that's actually the right way to think about things, which is, this is sort of the age-old debate. Is fire helpful or not fire? Is a typewriter helpful? We went back and asked, are these incredible technologies going to disrupt, change jobs? I've always viewed it through the lens of efficiency, which is, yes, if you want to use fire in a harmful way, you could burn down a house, but I choose to use it to keep ourselves warm. A typewriter, you could have written by hand, but thank God for a word processor that's made us more efficient. So all of us should not fear AI. We should use it just the same way that you thought about that first example of the printing press or a typewriter or fire, in ways in which it will make us more productive. And that means we have to all move higher in the stack of our use of these tools as opposed to thinking of it as a threat. So, the first time spell check came out, I'm sure people whose expertise was spelling probably felt a little threatened. But they all got to be better writers as opposed to just better spell checkers. The same way I would say today, if the value add of a new grad is being able to read large amounts of documents and summarize that, that's going to get done by these agentic tools. So you start to now getting better at using them to write faster, or using them to compose a musical tune better and faster. So I just think that all of these things make you productive. One of the most stressful things in our daily life is driving, right? And most accidents happen, some on the freeways, but a lot of them happen inside stop-and-go traffic in cities because someone's not being attentive. They're on their phone or whatever have you. Well, let's take this worry of phones and have you sit in the back seat and let the car drive for you, right? Does that mean that all of a sudden drivers are, we make them more productive? So I think that's the way in which we've all got to think about the future of AI, agentic AI, and how it's going to help our lives. Think about the future of anything that's repetitive, that can get it automated and done by a robot. And in our world of security, that means guessing what the bad guys are going to do and ensuring we build those algorithms. Now, let me tell you, the bad guys are also using agentic AI to generate ransomware. Right. It can be used for good or for bad. Think again of the fire, right? The same fire that's keeping you warm could be used by someone to burn down a house. So we have to be 10 steps ahead of the bad guys, because in our world of keeping the world secure, we got to be right all the time. Bad guys have to do that. So coming back to your question about the current administration and efficiency and AI, one of the things that's incredibly powerful about this country is the best companies in AI, the best companies in security are in the United States. Okay. So if you're American, you got to feel extremely proud that the innovation's happening here. In security, there's also a lot of good innovation happening in one of our great friends in Israel. Many of us work with companies there. Some of us acquire companies. So in security, I think the United States and Israel is doing the most pioneering work in technology in security. And if we want to be the country that the world admires for innovation, this is it. This is the best time. You're at the center of security and AI and cloud. And these tech companies, we're one small piece of many other great companies, are the most admired companies of the world. 25% of the S&P 500 are American tech companies. So, all of us should feel very excited about innovation. If you're a young college grad coming out, we want that workforce to join and help drive innovation. And we need a lot more college grads who know about tech, men and women. There are not enough women, for example, study computer science. I did my undergrad at Dartmouth. I went back to the computer science department there, and we need more women in that. We need them too. So I think we need to see this now really driving.
There we go. Thank you.
Driving all. We want.
Okay. Thank you.
But I think part of it is perhaps people being, when I ask them, it's because people have a stereotype or a prototype of, it has to be this type of person. I think now with these tools that allow you to do things with AI, everything's going to change for the better.
Okay, so we've been talking about government. Okay, so we've got public cloud systems and private cloud systems, right? How do you consolidate, or do you consolidate for security and safety now that you've got this overlay of AI?
I think there will always be a segmentation of three possible cloud systems. Private cloud are going to be very sacred to the nature of, let's say, a classified or kind of a secure part of the government that needs to stay in their cloud private cloud, on-premises, and so forth. Public cloud may be places where they say, okay, it's the website that is visible anyway to the world. The documents on that website are visible to the world, so it could sit in Amazon. But there is a third concept now developing outside the United States, what's called a sovereign cloud. So what's happening in many of the countries outside the United States, they say, okay, given policies that every government is forming, including tariffs, we have to now build our cloud in Germany, okay, that has data in Germany. And legislation is starting to get formed in parts of Europe, especially in the EU. There's a legislation called DORA, which requires you to keep the data in the country of residence, France, Germany. And I think that trend is going to happen to some subset of the 150 or 170 odd countries. So I think we're going to be in a place, Tammy, where we've got a private cloud, a public cloud, and a sovereign cloud for each of these countries. And that's okay. I mean, from our perspective, as long as the formats of the types of data inside them, that's much more a location choice. Is it on-premise or in an Amazon or in the country of choice? You're still going to find the types of data we talked about before. Unstructured,
Right.
structured, virtual machines, databases, files, and so on and so forth. But it now does create. Now, in a company like us at Cohesity, we thrive on heterogeneity, okay? So the more diverse that data, the more you need us. So I'm being a little self-serving.
There you go.
If it was
Write
all,
that down, Ocean's here from France.
the more that it was all on one public cloud, an Amazon or Microsoft's a winner. So we actually think, in some senses, a Switzerland company like ours, which is sort of neutral to these 3 or 4 kind of concepts of where data is, pronounces more the need for companies like us, and there'll be others like us that thrive in heterogeneity.
So Cohesity has supported the President's AI action plan. What are your suggestions to make it stronger? What else do you think they should be doing?
Yeah, I think we wrote a paper on this, the AI action plan. We talked about how there's no AI without secure data. I mean, you could be building all these great AI, but if the data is not of high quality and high security, the AI algorithms are going to. So they think the first thing is to make sure our data is secure and ready for AI. And that's all that we talked about before, so that it can be in a repository in a place where you can count on it not being hacked into, where the quality of the data is. And on top of that we have techniques by which we talked about also earlier, can use concepts like retrieval augmented generation, a concept called RAG, on this data to allow you to summarize it. So there's, I think, a 5-point plan in that. We have a framework we call out in the paper called 5 Steps to Cyber Resilience. It's sort of like a cyber hygiene rule. What do we mean by hygiene? Like we encourage our kids, and then we become adults and we brush our teeth, either in the morning, night, and maybe hopefully in the middle of the day too if you need to. And as a kid, they'll, some point they'll tell you, why don't you do it? And then you tell them the horror story that happened to people's teeth if you don't do it. It's the same way in security. You got to tell people it's really important that we have a multi-factor authentication. That means all of you hopefully have this concept where when you set a password, they confirm that with some note to your phone. Okay?
Right.
Now, what happens if your phone gets stolen? They can use things like your, your thumbprint or your, retina scan. So things of that kind are very important for everyone to set. And now, hopefully, your mother and father also know, your grandparents know what multi-factor authentication, but people weren't talking about that 10 years ago. So there's concepts of those in cyber hygiene that we also lay out in the paper that is very important. We educate all our employees on, and eventually all our citizens on.
Well, I was going to ask you about how do you create a tech-savvy workforce so fast, because this is all rolling out now?
I've been amazed at how the older generation, my dad is 86, my mom's 83, they're in good health, and I hope they live for as many years as they have left in life. They didn't grow up tech savvy, but how this device has changed everything in their life, right? They're not on the computer as much, but on the phone a lot more. And, speech to voice to text, the tools and the apps have gotten more savvy. The way in which you take photos, all the things that your older generation has. And I think we could learn a little bit from how, as much as I describe my daughter and my children's experience with technology, how the older generation is also adopting technology in an increasingly AI-capable way. And they're also learning that their data could be hacked. How many of you have an older generation that's had some of their data, compromised, or got this random email from some country they never heard of saying, please send me money to XYZ? And they've learned, don't click on that link. And it's really sad to hear the victims of these stories who were not, innocent people, older people who thought this was a genuine email and they sent money there and, lost a bunch of savings.
We have some British folks in the room from the embassy. I'd like to say that Kensington Palace has been emailing me, but I knew it wasn't.
Yes, that's it.
I'm not making it up for like 2 weeks. Can we chat after? Maybe you can get that shut off because I know it's not real. But what about the workforce? I mean, how do you go? So you're working with government every day. How do you keep them educated on top of things? It's private and public.
So when we talked about those rules of cyber, I explained one, which was multi-factor authentication. But we have many other rules of how we encourage. We call those the 5 steps of cyber resilience. So example 1, make sure every one of your workloads are protected. What does a workload mean? Your virtual machine, your database. Don't leave any door open for the bad guys to come in. So we would go work, many of your CIOs and CTOs, we'd work with your infrastructure team, identify the workloads, and make sure every one of them has got a secure backup plan, okay? And none of them are left open so that, the bad guys can come in. Then we educate, we have a cyber event team that educates, we do ransomware workshops. Think of a ransomware workshop or a security workshop.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I hope you have snacks.
The best analogy is who likes going through a fire drill and earthquake? We don't have any earthquakes here in DC. We have a lot of them that we've got to prepare for in San Francisco. No one likes doing them, but it's a necessary part of preparing for when it does happen, okay? So that's the same thing with ransomware workshop. We want to make sure that we actually encourage our clients to assume you're going to get hacked, okay? Assume you're going to get breached and prepare for that event when it does happen, as opposed to, oh my gosh, here's a fire, earthquake, what do we do? So that same level of preparedness that you do for a fire and earthquake, we need to have for a security event. And it may feel boring and like a waste of time, but it's really important that your organization goes through it and say, okay, if this happens, and let's assume it's not an if, but a when, how quickly can we recover our email? Because that's probably the first thing Secretary of State may want, not to pick on Marco Rubio. But why is my email not up? Well, let's make sure that can come up within an hour. Okay, maybe the next most important application is something else, needs to come back within a day. These other applications can come back in a week. And these, the final one, they're not so important, can come back in a month. And the others we don't even care about. So if you think about it, an hour, a day, a week, a month, you categorize all your applications and you run through a simulation. It's the same way you think about a fire and earthquake. So all of that are part of the preparedness, Tammy, that we run through in a workshop. And those types of preparedness are all part of that sort of framework of cyber resilience.
Okay, so 5 years from now, okay, what's an effective data strategy for government? I hope that's not an unfair question. But I really want to know where you think things go.
I think that increasingly everything we search for or look for is going to be AI assisted. Like today, if you use Google, in the past, you search for something. Find me the best restaurants within, 100 feet of here. It would show you a listing from Yelp or so on and so forth. But now if you use Gemini, which is their AI agent, is doing a lot more to categorize it, give you ratings. It's kind of generating content. That's a lot more powerful than just a listing from Yelp, right? So if you think about your search experience, the way in which you study, summarize, the way in which we drive, every one of those things has data. And our hope is that that helps you run your life better, more productively, helps you run your life more safer. From a healthcare perspective, I hope it helps us extend life expectancy. I hope that the entire aspect of analytics and AI will solve many diseases. Because if you think about, we've been talking a lot about security, Tammy, but the entire world of genome research, cancer research is also, they're fighting bad guys, a different form of bad guys. It's diseases. But it's the same science that applies to the way we think about security that helps to healthcare. I'm on the board of directors of Philips, a med tech company, and AI is revolutioning imaging, the way in which we think about imaging, the core thing that Philips does. And the same way with every pharma company, whether you're Johnson & Johnson or Merck or so on and so forth. And I think that we will have, hopefully, I hope in our lifetime, cures to many of the most diseases that have debilitated people, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whether it's Alzheimer's, ALS. I hope that the AI techniques will solve all of that. So Could you imagine every car be self-driving? I hope so. It's within our lifetime. It's already starting. If you look at Waymo and so on and so forth. I'm not sure I would trust Waymo on a freeway as yet. That's me. Okay? But I absolutely trust it in the cities of San Francisco. I've driven it. It's fine. It's great. It's probably safer than a person who's inattentive playing with their phone. So I think these are the kinds of things that we will definitely see in the next 5 years.
All right, sounds great. 2 final questions. What is your favorite AI?
I use Gemini a lot because it's my default on my phone with Google. But then I actually have on my app all of because I'm playing around with them because I'm in this industry. ChatGPT and Claude, which is Anthropic, and Perplexity. And then inside of... Yeah. So for me, I actually it's a little bit like asking you what's your favorite, hobby. I like to play many sports. So what's your favorite music? I have 3 or 4 different. So I play with all 4.
Okay.
All 4 of the most prominent ones.
The next question is, what is your favorite prompt?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, when I asked Jensen this question, he answered like this super complicated thing. I couldn't even follow him. Then I go in and they put the research here and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So I would have said, what is the best something?
Yeah, I'm probably in that same fashion. Jensen's a lot smarter than me on the AI topic. My life is much more driven through kind of search-driven things, and it's transformed significantly. So if I'm meeting a customer, I'll ask ChatGPT or Claude or one of the other tools, what should I talk about with that customer because it's been in the news. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, think of it like the grand summarizer. It's catching up all the news that happened. Someone asked me today, what's your view on the restructuring that happened at OpenAI? Okay, great question to ask Gemini. It summarized all of what's happened. In the last few days, there's been some phenomenal news on this OpenAI topic, and they're restructuring the move to a for-profit and separate the nonprofit. Rather than read 10 articles, it summarized it for me. I got a paragraph, and I'm a little more savvy on that topic. That thing would have taken me twice as long or 3 times long to read every article, whether it's from Reuters or Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal or whatever have you. So I think that those are the types of things that in the prompt world, I hope make us a lot more productive.
Sanjay Poonen, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Tammy. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The best analogy is who likes going through a fire drill and earthquake? You don't have any earthquakes here in D.C. We have a lot of them that we've got to prepare for in San Francisco. No one likes doing that. But it's a necessary part of preparing for when it does happen. Okay? So that's the same thing with Ransomware Workshop. We want to make sure that we actually encourage our clients to assume you're going to get hacked. Okay? Assume you're going to get breached and prepare for that event when it does happen, as opposed to, oh my gosh, here's a fire, earthquake, what do we do?
Right.
So that same level of preparedness that you do for a fire and earthquake, we need to have for a security event. And it may feel boring and like a waste of time, but it's really important that your organization goes through it and say, okay, if this happens, and let's assume it's not an if but a when, how quickly can we recover our email? Because that's probably the first thing Secretary of State may want, not to pick on Marco Rubio. But yeah. Why is my email not up? Well, let's make sure that can come up within an hour. Okay, maybe the next most important application is something else. It needs to come back within a day. These other applications can come back in a week. And these, the final one, they're not so important, can come back in a month. And the others we don't even care about. So if you think about it, an hour, a day, a week, a month, you categorize all your applications and you run through a simulation. It's the same when you think about a fire and earthquake. So all of that are part of the preparedness, Tammy, that we run through in a workshop. And those types of preparedness are all part of that sort of framework of cyber resilience.
Okay, so 5 years from now, okay, what's an effective data strategy for government? I hope that's not an unfair question. But I really want to know where you think things go.
I think that increasingly, everything we search for or look for is going to be AI assisted. Like today, if you use Google, in the past, you search for something. Find me the best restaurants within, 100 feet of here. It would show you a listing from Yelp or so on and so forth. But now if you use Gemini, which is their AI agent, it's doing a lot more to categorize it, give you ratings. It's kind of generating content. That's a lot more powerful than just a listing from Yelp, right? So if you think about your search experience, the way in which you study, summarize, the way in which we drive, every one of those things has data. And our hope is that that helps you run your life better, more productively, helps you run your life more safer. From a healthcare perspective, I hope it helps us extend life expectancy. I hope that the entire aspect of analytics and AI will solve many diseases. Because if you think about, we've been talking a lot about security, Tammy.
Right.
But the entire world of genome research, cancer research is also, they're fighting bad guys, a different form of bad guys. It's diseases. But it's the same science that applies to the way we think about security that helps to healthcare. I'm on the board of directors of Philips, a medtech company, and AI is revolutioning imaging, the way in which we think about imaging, same the core thing that Philips does. And the same way with every pharma company, whether you're Johnson & Johnson or Merck or so on and so forth. And I think that we will have, hopefully, I hope, in our lifetime, cures to many of the most diseases that have debilitated people, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whether it's Alzheimer's, ALS. I hope that the AI techniques will solve all of that. So could you imagine every car be self-driving? Oh, if so. It's within our lifetime. It's already starting. If you look at Waymo and so on and so forth. I'm not sure I would trust Waymo on a freeway as yet. That's me. But I absolutely trusted the cities of San Francisco. I've driven it. It's fine. It's great. Probably safer than a person who's intent of playing with their phone. So I think these are the kinds of things that we will definitely see in the next 5 years.
All right, sounds great. 2 final questions. What is your favorite AI?
I use Gemini a lot because it's my default on my phone with Google. But then I actually have on my app all of because I'm playing around with them because I'm in this industry. ChatGPT and Claude, which is Anthropic, and Perplexity. And then
That's what Jensen said. Yeah.
For me, I actually it's a little bit like asking you what's your favorite, hobby. I like to play many sports. So what's your favorite music?
Okay.
And so I play with all 4.
Okay.
All 4 of the most prominent ones.
The next question is, what is your favorite prompt?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, when I asked Jensen this question, he answered like this super complicated thing. I couldn't even follow him. Then I go in and they put the research here and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So I would have said, what is the best something?
Yeah, I'm probably in that same fashion. Jensen's a lot smarter than me on the my life is much more driven through kind of search-driven things, and it's transformed significantly. So if I'm meeting a customer, I'll ask ChatGPT or Claude or one of the other tools, what should I talk about with that customer that's sending me news? Mm-hmm. And it's, again, think of it like the grand summarizer. It's catching up all the news that happened. Someone asked me today, what's your view on the restructuring that happened at OpenAI? Okay, great question to ask Gemini. It summarized all of what's happened. In the last few days, there's been some phenomenal news on this OpenAI topic, and they're restructuring and move to a for-profit and separate the nonprofit. Rather than read 10 articles, it summarized it for me. I've got a paragraph, and I'm a little more savvy on that topic. That thing would have taken me twice as long or 3 times long to read every article, whether it's Reuters or Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal, whatever have you. So I think that those are the types of things that in the prompt world, I hope make us a lot more productive.
Sanjay Poonen, thank you so much. Thank you for everything. Thank you for listening to the Washington AI Network podcast. Be sure to subscribe and join the conversation. The Washington AI Network is a bipartisan forum bringing together the top leaders and industry experts to discuss the biggest opportunities and the greatest challenges around AI. The Washington AI Network podcast is produced and recorded by Haddad Media. Thanks for listening.